Ashtatarashatashmad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupāda Ki Jai. Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keśavāṣṭakam Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Goswami Prabhupāda Ki Jai. Nitil Vishta Maha Bhagavat Srila Gopsharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Vishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nitil Vishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadashgunath Shara Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gopal the Vṛndā Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vṛndā Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Vraja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishya Bharati Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund Ki Jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vṛndā-Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vṛndā Ki Jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vṛndā Ki Jai. Shri Keśavāṣṭakam Ki Jai. Vrat Palan Kari Bhakta Vṛndā Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vṛndā-Devi Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vṛndā Ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hari Bol Dandavat Pranam. All right. I'll give a little bit of time for more people to join. And let's change the background. We've had this background for so long now. Which one should we do? Oh, that's new. No, that's too distracting. Let's do something simple. Okay. How about we read the translation now while we wait for people to come on? So, Vṛndā-devyaṣṭakam by Śrīla Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. You inundate all of your associates in a flood of your splendor, which belittles gold, champak flowers, and lightning. Your divine dress resembles the orange-red luster of the banduka flower. O Vṛndā, we offer pranam to your lotus feet. O Vṛndā, your countenance is especially radiant, illuminated by the gentle smile rising on your bimba-red lips and the pearl on your nose. Your beauty is enhanced by various jeweled ornaments. O Vṛndā, we offer pranam to your lotus feet. Oh, 1 second. Let me fix this mic. The daughter of Vrishabhanu Maharaj, Srimati Radhika, has given you dominion over Sri Krishna's most glorious Sri Vṛndavan Dham, which is the crown jewel of all Vaikuntha planets. O Vṛndā, we offer pranam to your lotus feet. By your order, the buds, blossoms, flowers, bees, deer, and all other kinds of animals and birds, as well as the 6 seasons headed by spring, brilliantly decorate the kunjas where Sri Madhav enjoys his playful pastimes. O Vṛndā, we offer pranam to your lotus feet. Your adeptness at acting as a messenger makes it possible for the youthful couple of the kunjas to accomplish their playful, amorous pastimes, for which they are so eager. Who can properly describe your good fortune? O Vṛndā, we offer pranam to your lotus feet. The desire to behold the Ras Lila, attain residence in Sri Vṛndavan, and perform service to the lotus feet of your Lord and Lady is attained by a person through your mercy alone. O Vṛndā, we offer pranam to your lotus feet. Those conversant in devotional scriptures and the Bhakti Tantras glorify you as Sri Krishna's pastime potency, Krishna's Lila Shakti. In this world, you assume the form of the Tulsi tree. O Vṛndā, we offer pranam to your lotus feet. Devoid of bhakti, and guilty of unlimited offenses. We are flung into the waves of lust, anger, greed, and so on. O merciful one, we take shelter of you. O Vṛnda, we offer pranam to your lotus feet. Those who, like bumblebees at the lotus feet of the divine couple, hear or recite this Vṛndā-devyaṣṭakam, will obtain eternal residence in Vrindavan and become fulfilled, having attained loving service to them. That should be a short A. Sorry. Okay. Oh, is it a long A? I thought it should have been a short A. I think it is supposed to be a short A. Anyways, I'm going to have to look that up. Let's see, is it working all right? People are there? Okay. Radhe Radhe, Dandavat Pranam, Gargaraj. Okay. Oh, and just 1 second. Sorry, I should have done this before. Just want to make sure it's okay. I think it's using my headphones. Yeah, okay. And think without noise suppression. I don't know. Let me know if the background noise is too much for you. O Gange achampe atarer vinende roche pravahas napitatma vrinde bandho kabandho duti devyaṣṭakam vrinde namaste charanaravindam Padarode Tvara Mandahasya Nasagra Mukta Dutide Pitase Vichitaratna Paranashiyade Vrinde Namaste Charanaravindam Samasta Vaikunta Shiromanashe Krishnasya Vṛndā-vanadanyadani Tattadikade Vrishabhanuputra Vrinde Namaste Charanaravindam Tvarāgyaya Pallava Pushpa Bringa Vrikati Virmadhavate Likunja Madhvati Virvanti Vibhushamana Vrinde Namaste Charanaravindam Tvadiyadutena Nikunja Yunor Atyutkayoke Divilasasiti Tvatsobhagam kena nirochatanka Vrinde Namaste Charanaravindam Rasabhilasho Vasatishta Vrindavane Tvarisham Krisaroja Seva Labhya Chapumsam Vipayata Vaiva Vrinde Namaste Charanaravindam Tam Kirtyase Satvata Tantra Virvid Lila Vidana Kila Krishna Shaktis Tavaiva Murtis Tulasi Nriloke Vrinde Namaste Charanaravindam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Laksha Keśavāṣṭakam Akripa Mahitva Sharanam Prapana Vrinde Namaste Charanaravindam Vrindai Vṛndā-devyaṣṭakam Śrīnayat Patirva Vṛndā-vana-deshapadabja-bringa Saprapya Vṛndā-vana-nitya-vasa Prema Sevam Labhate Kritartha O Vrinde Namaste Charanaravinda Vrinde Namaste Charanaravinda O Vrinde Namaste Charanaravinda Vrinde Namaste Charanaravinda Jaya Vṛndā-devi Jaya Vṛndā-devi Vṛndā-devi Jaya Vṛndā-devi Jaya Vṛndā-devi Jaya Vṛndā-devi Vṛndā-devi Jaya Vṛndā-devi. Okay, I'm going to read the translation for this today. Wearing beautiful earrings wrought with clusters. What's this word wrought? Sorry. That doesn't matter. I'll look later. It sounds like a weird word here. Wearing beautiful earrings wrought from clusters of new kadamba buds, a brilliant wreath of fully blossoming malati jasmine crowning his head, and across his chest, a captivating garland strung from utica jasmine that is blooming ever so slightly. He returns from the forest lands of Vraj like a victor marching home. That Keshav I worship. I worship Keshav as he returns to Vraj from the forest lands, moving to and fro, cheerfully calling out to his divine Surabhi cows, Pishangi, Manikastani, Pranatashringi, Pingekshane, Mridangamukhi, Dhumale, Shabali, Hangsi, Vangsi Priye. I like that. Mridangamukhi. Mridanga-shaped face, head, cow. That's the name. Tender in their bosom bond of friendship, they are all veritable reservoirs of tasteful cowherd boy humor, as well as experts in singing, dancing, the arts, and sports. Mingling now in an array of splendid outfits on the paths into Vraj. I serve that Keshav who, with his words, makes these friends of his laugh with all their hearts as they return from the forest of pastures. Beads of perspiration gently lick his cheeks, which have painted by beads of perspiration gently lick his cheeks, which have been painted with charming designs of budding leaves using fragrant mineral colors, gold, red, white, and blue, collected from the hills of Giriraj Govardhan, while his restless curling locks of hair mocks a lustrous swarm of bees. I worship that Keshav as he returns to Vraj from the forests. Eager to see their newborn calves, who are safely restrained back in the Goshta village of Vraj, many of the white Dhavala cows dash ahead, carving up the earth with the points of their hooves. I worship that Keshav who is quick to summon them back to the front of the herd with the soft melodious tones of his flute as he proceeds back to Vraj from the forests. I worship that Keshav as he returns to Vraj from the forests, deftly beautifying the roads with countless footprints, distinct with the auspicious markings of a flag, thunderbolt, etc. While the restless cows run ahead, kicking up so much dust that it covers his garland of forest flowers, making it look a dark reddish gray. The gentle waves of the breeze ruffles the hem of his pitambar, and the tips of his peacock feather. The gentle waves of the breeze ruffles the hem of his pitambar and the tips of his peacock feather crown. From a distance, the sweet low sound of the long Murali flute he uses in his playful pastimes delights the hearts of all the ladies of Vraj, those of his mother's age, who are in their homes, and it causes the hair on their limbs to stand on end. Krishna's return, like a festival, has everyone excited. Thus, again and again, increasing the bliss in the heart of the Queen of Vraj, his mother Yashoda, He returns from the forest to Vraj. I worship that Keshav. And by the way, all these words in parentheses, this is all from Baladev Vijayabhushan's commentary. So we didn't just make this up. Rushing up to the path, the multitudes of beautiful girls, like so many goddesses of fortune, worship him with budding smiles and hundreds of dancing, crooked, sidelong glances, while his eyes, like honeybees, rove around the edges of their breasts, which, adorned with stunning blouses, appear to be bouquets of blossoming flowers. I worship that Keshav as he returns to Vraj from the forests. This is a grand festival of delight for the hosts of cowherd girls. If a person following the proper process of bhajan reads and recites this 8-part poem profusely, then may the bosom friend of Vishaka endow him with brilliant intelligence, granting him unwavering love, rati or bhav, for his lotus feet, and thereby delight him for all time. Just gonna check, is the background noise too loud? Okay, didn't see any comments there, so I guess it's okay. Dandavat pranams, Riseshwari Mataji, and I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but Ariana. Nava Priyaka Manjari Rachita Karna Purashiyam Vinidratara Malati Kalita Shekare Nojvala Tarochvasita Yutika Kratita Valguvai Kakshaka Praje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keśavā Shangi Manikastani Pranata Shringi Pingekshane Mridanga Mukidu Male Shabali Hamsi Vamsi Priye Iti Swasura Vikudam Taralama Vayanta Mura Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keśavā Gana Pranayame Duran Madhura Narma Goshti Kala Vilasa Nilayan Virat Vivida Vesha Vidotina Asagena Kila Saraya Patishuha Sayantam Gira Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keśavā Shamambu Kanika Vali Daravilida Kandantara Samura Girita Tubir Likita Charu Pantrankuram Udan Charali Mandale Duti Vidam Vivakralakam Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keśavā Nivata Navatarnaka Vali Vilokanot Kantaya Natat Kura Putan Chalar Alogu Bir Bhuvan Vedatim Okale Natavala Gatam Lagu Nirvartayantam Puro Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keśavā Padankatati Virvaram Virachayantam Advashiyam Chalat Taralanaichiki Nichaya Dolitum Rasrajam Marolla Harichanchale Krita Dukola Churan Chalalam Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keśavā Vilasa Murali Kala Tvani birula sanmanasa Kshanara kila padavi Polakayantamantar grihe Muhurvidadatam hride Pramuditam cha Goshteshware Braje vijayinam bhaje Vipina deshata Keśavam Upetapati sundari Tati virabhiravyarchitam Smitam kurakaram pitar Natarapanga bhangeshatai Stanastavaka sancharan Nayana chanchari kanchala Braje vijayinam bhaje Vipina deshata Keśavam Idam nikila pallavi Kula mahotsavo lasanam Kramena kilaya puman Patita Śrīla Atamujvaladiyam sada Nijapadara vindadvaye Ratim dadara chanchalam Sukayatad vishakasaka Braje vijayinam bhaje Vipinate shata Keśavam 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 Jaya Keśavadev 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 Jaya Keśavadev Jaya Keśavadev Jaya Keśavadev Keśavadev Jaya Keśavadev. Let me take out this background noise now. This noise suppression. I was taking away noise suppression because I thought it would probably block out the mridanga. So, all right, so this is an article I've actually never, well, if I read it before, I can't remember. But I thought it went along nicely with, what I'm planning to do is read, first by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, then by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Prabhupāda, and then by, his disciples like Śrīla Sridhar Gosvāmī Maharaj, our Śrīla A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and my Param Gurudev, and Śrīla Bhakti Puri Goswami Maharaj, like that, all of our acharyas, and then afterwards, okay, 1 second, let me just take off this mridanga. All right. Initiation into spiritual life. And this essay was originally penned in English in December 1928. Let me just check everything's okay. Yes. Okay, cool. Pramila likes the plan. Great. The initial impulse. Oh yeah, and this PDF is a bit messed up. That's why the text is like so, what is it? Cramped, and the diacritics are all weird. The initial impulse. The ceremony of diksha, or initiation, is that by which the spiritual preceptor admits one to the status of a neophyte on the path of spiritual endeavor. The ceremony tends to confer spiritual enlightenment by abrogating sinfulness. Abrogating, I think, means to do away with, by getting rid of. And the dictionary is not loading, I don't know. Oh, there. repeal. Oh yeah, see, repeal or do away with. Its actual effect depends on the degree of willing cooperation on the part of the disciple and is therefore not the same in all cases. It does not preclude the possibility of reversion on the novice. It does not preclude the possibility of reversion on the novice to the spiritual state if he slackens in his effort or misbehaves. I need to close this messenger. It's distracting. Okay. Initiation puts a person on the true track and also imparts an initial impulse to go ahead. It cannot, however, keep one going for good unless one chooses to put forth his own voluntary effort. So just getting initiated is not enough. We have to make our own endeavor, our own voluntary effort. The nature of the initial impulse also varies in accordance with the condition of the recipient. But although the mercy of the good preceptor enables us to have a glimpse of the Absolute and of the path of his attainment, the seed that is thus sown requires very careful tending under the direction of the preceptor if it is to germinate and grow into a fruit and shade-giving tree. Unless our soul chooses to serve Krishna of his own accord after attaining a working idea of his real nature, he cannot long retain the spiritual vision. The soul is never compelled by Krishna to serve him. But initiation is never altogether futile. It changes the disciple's outlook on life. If he sins after initiation, he may fall into greater depths of degradation than the uninitiated. Okay, so if he sins after initiation, he may fall into greater depths of degradation than the uninitiated. But although even after initiation, temporary setbacks may occur, they do not ordinarily prevent the final deliverance. The faintest glimmering of real knowledge of the Absolute has sufficient power to change radically and for good the whole of our sorry, I'm having a hard time reading. It has sufficient power to change radically and for good the whole of our mental and physical constitution. And this glimmering is incapable of being totally extinguished, except in extraordinary, unfortunate cases. Treating the ailment of the soul. It is undoubtedly practicable for the uninitiated, if only he is willing. To follow the directions of the preceptor that lead by slow degrees to the Absolute. The good preceptor is verily the saver of fallen souls. It is, however, very rarely that a person with modern culture feels inclined to submit to the guidance of another, especially in spiritual matters. But the very person submits readily enough to the direction of a physician for being cured of his bodily ailments, since these latter cannot be ignored without consequences that are patent to everybody. The evil that results from our neglect of the ailments of the soul is of a nature that paralyzes and deludes our understanding and prevents the recognition of itself. Its gravity is not recognized as it does not apparently stand in the way of our worldly activities with the same directness as the other. The average cultured man is so. Yeah, we can notice our physical ailments, when we get sick and like that, but we don't recognize that we're spiritually sick. The average cultured man is therefore at liberty to ask questions without realizing any pressing necessity of submitting to the treatment of spiritual maladies at the hands of a really competent physician. The questions that are frequently asked are as these. Why should it be at all necessary to submit to any particular person or to subscribe to any particular ceremony for the purpose of realizing the Absolute, who by his nature is unconditioned? Why should Krishna require our formal declaration of submission to him, to himself? Would it not be more generous and logical to permit us to live a life of freedom in accordance with the principles of our perverted nature, which is also his creation? Admitting that it is our duty to serve Krishna, why should we have to be introduced to him by a third party? Why is it impossible for one to serve Krishna directly? I think this is probably an idea, especially that's prevalent in the West. You know, why do I have to surrender to a guru? Why can't I just approach God directly? And Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur, he wrote this in English for us Westerners. The bad preceptor. It would no doubt be highly convenient and helpful to be instructed by a good preceptor who is well versed in the scriptures, and understanding the same. But one should never submit to another to an extent that may furnish a rascal with an opportunity of really doing harm. The bad preceptor is a familiar character. It is inexplicable how those gurus who live in open sin contrive nevertheless to retain the unquestioning allegiance of the cultured portion of their disciples. Such being the case, can we blame any person who hesitates to submit unconditionally to a preceptor, whether he is good or bad? It is, of course, necessary to be quite sure of the bona fides of a It is, of course, quite necessary to be quite sure of the bona fides of a person before we accept him, even tentatively, as our spiritual guide. A preceptor should be a person who appears likely to possess those qualities that will enable him to improve our spiritual condition. Bona fide preceptor and willing disciple. Those and similar thoughts are likely to occur to most persons who have received an English education when they are asked to accept the help of any particular person as a spiritual preceptor. The literature, science, and art of the West body forth the principle of the liberty of the individual. Sorry, this is interesting English. The literature, science, art, and the West body forth the principle of the liberty of the individual and denounce the mentality that leads one to surrender to a person, however superior, his right of choosing his own course. Oh God, I always have such a hard time with Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur's English. It's very high class. They inculcates the necessity and high value of having faith in oneself. But the good preceptor claims our sincere and complete allegiance. The good disciple makes complete surrender of himself at the feet of the preceptor. But the submission of the disciple is neither irrational nor blind. It is complete on condition that the preceptor himself continues to be altogether good. The disciple retains the right of renouncing his allegiance to this preceptor the moment he is satisfied that the preceptor is a fallible creature like himself. Nor does a good preceptor accept anyone as his disciple unless the latter is prepared to submit to him freely. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the article that we read yesterday, is talking about these same points, wasn't he? A good preceptor is in duty bound to renounce a disciple who is not sincerely willing to follow his instructions fully. Yeah, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said the same thing yesterday. If a preceptor accepts as his disciple one who refuses to be wholly guided by him, or if a disciple submits to a predecessor who is not wholly good, such preceptor and such disciple are, both of them, doomed to fall from their spiritual state. No one is a good preceptor who has not realized the Absolute. One who has realized the Absolute is saved from the necessity of walking on the worldly path. The good preceptor who lives the spiritual life is, therefore, bound to be wholly good. He should be wholly free from any desire from anything of this world, whether good or bad. The categories of good and bad do not exist in the Absolute. In the Absolute, everything is good. We can have no idea in our present state of this absolute goodness. Unreserved submission to the Absolute. Submission to the Absolute is not real unless it is also itself absolute. It's not real unless it's absolute. It is on the plane of the Absolute that the disciple is required to submit completely to the good preceptor. On the material plane, there can be no such thing as complete submission. The pretense of complete submission to the bad preceptor is responsible for the corruptions that are found in the relationship of the ordinary worldly guru and his equally worldly-minded disciples. All honest thinkers will realize the logical propriety of the position set forth above. But most persons will be disposed to believe that a good preceptor in the above sense may not be found in this world. This is really so. Both the good preceptor and his disciple belong to the spiritual realm. But spiritual discipleship is nevertheless capable of being realized by persons who belong to this world. Otherwise, there would be no religion at all in the world. So there's no need to feel helpless. Spiritual discipleship is nevertheless capable of being realized by persons who belong to this world. Otherwise, there would be no such thing as Dharma. But because the spiritual life happens to be realizable in this world, it does not follow that it is the worldly existence that is capable of being improved into the spiritual. As a matter of fact, the one is perfectly incompatible with the other. Spiritualness and worldliness are completely incompatible with each other. They are categorically different from one another. The good preceptor, although he appears to belong to this world, is not really of this world. No one who belongs to this world can deliver one from worldliness. The good preceptor is a denizen of the spiritual world who has been enabled by the will of God to appear in this world in order to enable us to realize the spiritual existence. Liberty, a dream. The much vaunted individual, what's vaunted? Vaunted means praised or boasted about, especially in an excessive way. Okay. So the excessively celebrated. The much vaunted individual liberty is a figment of the diseased imagination. We are bound, willingly or unwillingly, to submit to the laws of God in the material world as well as in the spiritual world. The hankering for freedom in defiance of His laws is the cause of all our miseries. The total abjuration, solemnly renounce. Okay. The total solemn renunciation of all hankering for such freedom is the condition of admission to the spiritual realm. In this world, we desire this freedom, but are compelled against our will to submit to the inexorable laws of physical nature. What's inexorable mean? Sorry, guys, impossible to stop or prevent. Okay. Okay, so in this world, we desire this freedom, but are compelled against our will to submit to the laws of physical nature, which are impossible to prevent. We can't stop the laws of physical nature. This is the unnatural state. Such unwilling forced submission does not admit us into the spiritual realm. In this world, the moral principle indeed claims our willing submission. But even morality is a curtailment of freedom necessitated by the peculiar circumstances of this world. But even morality is a curtailment of freedom, necessitated by the peculiar circumstances of this world. The soul who does not belong to this world is in a state of open or court rebellion against submission to an alien domination. By his very constitution, he is capable of submitting willingly only to the absolute. Sincerity and complete conviction. The good preceptor asks the struggling soul to submit not to the laws of this world, which will only rivet its chains, but to a higher law of the spiritual realm. The pretense of submission to the laws of the spiritual realm, without the intention of really carrying them out into practice, is often mistaken for genuine submission. The pretense of submission to the laws of the spiritual realm without the intention of really carrying them out into practice is often mistaken for genuine submission. It springs from the absence of fullness of conviction. In this world, the fully convinced state is non-existent. We are, therefore, compelled in all cases to act on make-believes. That is, the so-called working hypotheses. The good preceptor tells us to change this method of activity, which we have learned from our experience. Which we have learned from our experience of this world. Wait. What was that? Sorry. The good preceptor tells us to change this method of activity, which we have learned from our experience of this world. And he invites us, first of all, to be really and fully informed of the nature and laws of the other world, which happens to be eternally and categorically different from this phenomenal world. If we do not sincerely submit to be instructed in the alphabets of the life eternal, but go on perversely asserting, however unconsciously, our present processes and so-called convictions against the instructions of the preceptor in the period of non-vitiate, we are bound to remain where we are. I don't know this word. Novitiate. I think that's how you say it. Novitiate. The period or state of being a novice, especially in a religious order. Okay, novitiate. Okay. So, wait, I didn't get that. We do not sincerely submit to be instructed in the alphabets, however unconsciously. Present processes and so-called convictions against the instructions of this period. We are bound to remain where we are. Okay, got it. This also will amount to the practical rejection of all advice, because the two worlds have nothing in common, though at the same time, we naturally fail to understand this, believing all the time in accordance with our accustomed methods that we are at any rate partially following the preceptor. Okay. But as a matter of fact, when we reserve the right of choice, we really follow ourselves, because even when we seem to agree to follow the preceptor, it is because he appears to be in agreement with ourselves. But as the two worlds have absolutely nothing in common, we are only under a delusion when we suppose that we really understand the method or the object of the preceptor, or in other words, reserve the right of assertion of the apparent self. Finding the good preceptor. Faith in the scriptures can alone help us in this otherwise unpracticable endeavor. We believe in the preceptor with the help of the Shastras when we understand neither. So we're fully dependent on the scriptures. We can't recognize who is a pure devotee. We need the help of Shastras to be able to understand who is a bona fide preceptor. As soon as we are fully convinced of the necessity of submitting unambiguously to the good preceptor, it is then and only then that he is enabled to show us the way into the spiritual world in accordance with the method laid out in the Shastras for that purpose. He can apply the method properly and without perpetrating a fatal blunder, inasmuch as he himself happens to belong to the realm of the spirit. The crux of the matter lies not in the external nature of the ceremony of initiation, as it appears to us. the crux of the matter lies not in the external nature of the ceremony of initiation as it appears to us, because that is bound to be unintelligible to us, being an affair of the other world, but in the conviction of the necessity and the successful choice of a really good preceptor. Okay. Does that sentence make sense to you? It's not as it appears to us, but it is in the conviction of the necessity and the successful choice of a really good preceptor. The conviction of the necessity. Oh, God. Okay. Anyhow, I kind of get it, but not 100%. We can attain to conviction of the necessity of the help of a good preceptor by. We can attain to the conviction of the necessity of the help of a good preceptor. Sorry. By the exercise of our unbiased reason in the light of our ordinary experience. Once this conviction has been truly formed, Sri Krishna himself helps us in finding the really good preceptor in two ways. In the first place, he instructs us in the first place, Krishna helps us, he instructs us as regards the character and functions of a good preceptor through the revealed Shastras. In the second place, he himself sends to us the good preceptor at the moment we are at all likely to benefit by his instructions. The good preceptor also comes to us when we reject him. Huh? He comes to us when we reject him? I don't get that. And in such cases also, it is certainly Krishna who sends him to us for no reason whatsoever. Ah, okay, I got it. Yes. So even when we reject him, the good preceptor also comes to us, being so merciful, right? Is that understanding it right? So if we are actually sincere, and we're actually ready to have Shri Guru, then Krishna sends his bona fide pure, his pure devotee to us. But even sometimes we don't even want it, but still the good preceptor will also come to us. I think that's what it's saying here, but please let me know if I'm not understanding properly. It's unconditional sometimes. Krishna sends unconditionally, Guarding ourselves against deceivers. Krishna has revealed from eternity the tidings of the spiritual realm in the form of transcendental sounds that have been handed down in the records of the spiritual scriptures all over the world. The spiritual scriptures help all those who are prepared to exercise this reason for the purpose of finding not the relative, but the absolute truth, to find out the proper instructor in accordance with their directions. The only good preceptor is he who can make us really understand the spiritual scriptures and enable us to realize the necessity and the nature of submission to the process laid down in them. In them means the scriptures, yes, okay. But there's still every chance of foul play. A very clever man or a magician may pass himself off as a person who can properly explain the scriptures by means of his greater knowledge or deceptive arts. It is very important, therefore, that we should be on our own guard against such tricks. The scholar, as well as the magician, pretends to explain the scriptures only in terms of the objects or happenings of this world. But the scriptures themselves declare that they do not tell us at all about the things of this world. Those who are liable to be deluded by the arts of pervert yogis persuade themselves into believing that the spiritual is identical with the perversion, distortion, or defiance of the laws of physical nature. The laws of physical nature are not unreal. They govern the relation of all relative existences. In our present state, it is therefore always possible for another who possesses the power or the knowledge to demonstrate the merely tentative character of what we choose to regard as our deepest convictions by exposing their insufficiency or inapplicability. But such surprises belong to the realm of the phenomenal and have nothing to do with the absolute. Those who have an unspiritual partiality for scholarship or for magic fall into the clutches of the pseudo-religionists. The serious plight of these victims of their own perversity will be realized from the fact that no one can be delivered from the state of ignorance by the method of compulsion. It is not possible to save the man who refuses on principle to listen to the voice of reason. The empiric pedants are no exception to this rule. Pedants, a person who is excessively concerned with minor details and rules or displaying academic learning. Okay, so it's the academics who rely on their own ability are no exception to this rule. They also won't be able to understand the voice of reason. In conclusion, the plain meaning of the Shastras should therefore be our only guide in the search of the good preceptor when we actually feel the need of his guidance. The scriptures have defined the good preceptor as one who himself leads a spiritual life. It is not any worldly qualifications that make the good preceptor. It is by unreserved submission to such a preceptor that we can be helped to re-enter into the realm that is our real home, but which unfortunately is veritable terra incognita to almost all of us at present. Sorry, I need to look this up. Terra incognita. Anyways. It's like a fake world seeming, I don't know. This realm is inaccessible to body and mind alike, which are the result of the disease of abuse of our faculty of free reason and the consequent accumulation of a killing load of worldly experiences, which we have learned to regard as the very stuff of our existence. All right. Wow, Srila Prabhupada's English is very, very interesting, and yeah, it's just very high class. Sometimes it's a bit difficult for me to understand. I should have read this article before and got, anyhow. Oh my God, there's so many people watching, it's embarrassing. Tomorrow I'll pick an article that's a bit more on my level. Okay, and terra incognita means unknown territory. Thank you, Revati. Unknown land, unknown territory. Thank you, Ariana. Thank you so much for sticking with me through that. You were very patient to stick with me as I was trying to figure out all the different sentences. Okay. I'm just going to end with a quick Mahamantra. Tomorrow, I think the reading will be a bit more smooth, though. That was difficult. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Basically, the crux of the matter is our conviction of the importance of a good spiritual master. The external nature is the external nature of the ceremony will be understood only once the spiritual master is bona fide. Yes, that sounds right. That makes sense now. Thank you for that. Jai Shishi Guru Gaurangandavika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shila Gurudev Ki Jai Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shila Prabhupāda Ki Jai Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Shila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Shila Bhakti. Oh, we have Shila Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Gosai Maharaj disciple here. Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Shila Bhakti Dait Madhav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pavishtam Om Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Shila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosai Prabhupāda Ki Jai Tadiya Parshad Vṛndā Ki Jai Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Nitil Pavishtam. Whoa, what did I do? I just totally went blank. Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Shila Gaur Kishoras Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pavishta Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Nitil Pavishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Nitil Pavishta Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Shila Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shara Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vṛndā Ki Jai Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vṛndā Ki Jai Shiksheta Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sarva Abhishta Bharata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Radha Kun Shama Kun Ki Jai Shri Mona Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai Shri Tulsi Maharani Vṛndā-devi Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vṛndā Ki Jai Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vṛndā Ki Jai Shri Keśavāṣṭakam Ki Jai Vrat Palankari Bhakta Vṛndā Ki Jai Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vṛndā Ki Jai Shri Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol Vṛndai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keśavāṣṭakam Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams. And Revati Didi, maybe tomorrow we can read that article that you shared with in our Making Time for Kirtan group. What is it? Amar Bhajan by your Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Dait Madhav Gosai Maharaj. Or maybe the day after tomorrow, because I think tomorrow it's either the appearance day or disappearance day of Srila Bhakti Hriday Ban Goswami Maharaj. So maybe we should read something by him, and then the next day we can read that. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. See you all tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe.